Oh, Dr. Drew Pinsky has delusions, and so do the people that have been dealing with, like him, the other Dr. Phil too. These networks have been attaching kids and adults to fake conversations with themselves and others. A bunch of people intercities Connecticut with the police departments personally and professionally retired police chiefs and their intimate ties and families involved with the 80 Carriage Hill Drive. I'm involved with a bunch of people involved with Kevin Dillon, also planting evidence on all sides of my house. And with child abusers, leaders, and kids, first forced years apart. There are all kinds of organized crimes, acts, and methods. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not police form. There are judges and prosecutors speaking fake things in their delusions into databases. And as roles with wire and mail crime methods and digital crimes and collusions. Harvard Hospital has a Judge Killian involved with some rape threats with New Britain Superior Court and other people involved framing me to force me in there before him, in other words. And one other time they forced me there for 3 days before that. I still, I got a response from that. They pretended through the mail to other people that had conversations with me, with the Leahy family. That's one of the people at Hartford Hospital, involved also with a Lombardo woman and her extended family, involved with all kinds of drugs and medicines, crimes with the kids, while tactically delusions raw, like this Dr. Drew, involved with people with the World Trade Center too, with interstates, the Washington D.C. and the World Trade Center has rules with two whole bunch with conversations with people tied to two speech class teachers I had in high school. Never had a personal conversation with either of them though. There are increasingly collusions with people all along from the founding locations in Old Wethersfield, all along Route 175, and all along Route and conjunctions to it, and corners of streets on there, federal evidences crimes. And with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, former standing chairperson on the Racketeering Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act, and with directors since him, like a James Comey, also involved with all sides of criminal and civil cases, and the court's names and the intelligence tied to them, and at the same time, increasingly putting the same fake things in databases, increasingly on off the state corrections offices of Connecticut and the state judicial branch offices of Connecticut, and conjunctive to it, our roles with Dr. Phil and the doctors involved with the networks too. And WFSP put me in fake conversations with themselves and with others. They have a Dr. Laura Saunders involved also with neighbors of hers, intercities next to schools, with sexual and medical offenders of kids roles with doctors, female judges roles even. Female roles with some black KKK Confederate. They have a whole bunch of different natures of organized crime. And each campus I went to, there are connections made between them. Even the campus I went to before that, when I was in kindergarten in Wethersfield, I went to like a preschool, a Montessori school. There are people next to the Montessori school involved with the Morrow family, with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, involved with people from Miami too with this, and some Mendez police brothers who faked conversations with me at the Wethersfield police station. And with others, when I was a kid, they did the same thing. And they pretended such through the news to hide that. I never spoke with them at the Wethersfield police station as a kid. And the kids who did go down there, when they wanted me to go down there, those kids went down there and they forced them to fake conversations with me and fake ties to me and frame me with a Dillon guy who's been planting evidence on all sides of my house. Also with Officer Jerry Miller. Also with Joshua Schumack with a Facebook page, and his mother with a Facebook page of Wethersfield Police, involved with sexual and medical offenders of kids with some black KKK, Confederate flag theme, Latino theme, and people all along Route 175, involved with the intelligence community, criminally foreign impulse, tactically delusions raw through time. And roles with fire departments too, with foreign and domestic intelligence. They have roles with Russians. There are proofs, Joshua Schumack, he might have something to do with nuclear or people tied to him. I never saw him on my street in my life. He's one of the ones involved with people that came to my area to make confessions. He has rules too with with conjunctions to Route 3 and 3 spots at the end of the Borough Turnpike. are involved with people increasingly planting evidences at campuses, fake ties, fake natures of ties to me into databases pretended. And they're building on this at each campus I went to. As people involved with the World Trade Center attack interstates and internationally, connected campuses had roles with this. So in other words, and Elon Musk, in other words, you guys are having the nature of debates between people to hide roles. But in other words, you guys don't know how to speak about logic and reason. Then you attack me. In other words, he shouldn't be making allegations about people and jumping into a list like an Epstein list. Like in other words, that's because they're trying to figure out how to think people. And you have experts on the names of the people of the science that are criminally influence, tactically delusions raw. That's why you need to follow mandated law, get people off the fake conversations. With you guys have criminally influence, tactically delusions raw, faith in databases, syntax. Even when you know, and if you don't know that, that's where we're going to have to address your delusions too, regarding American history too. In other words, you guys replaced what our founders declassified. You guys replace what nature itself declassifies. All right. Get them out of the New York City campuses. Get them out of the suburban campuses. These psychiatry and their roles with other people. In other words, get them on paper. Watch what I caught their kids involved with. Sexual and medical offenders of kids years apart. And the kids that were involved with that now as adults roles with more then and now too. Whole bunch of people tied to the neighbors of Tom O'Connor. I never had a personal conversation with him. They're involved with people that act so other people can, on both sides, and put fake ties, fake nature of ties between people. Increasingly, people tied to mayors from Wethersfield, plural, retired mayors, like a Mayor Gold and his family members. Increasingly involved with collusions with people at Wethersfield Parks and Hartford Parks and businesses next to them and next to campuses, involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, with the families that work, with databases, putting fake things, fake contrasts. Increasingly, too, they plant evidences, they say something, and they time where you're going to be and just say something real quick. You don't have time to respond. Or if you respond, they're going to change the fake it. In other words, they know that's what they're hiding. They're pretending they don't realize that with the girl at Trinity College, who's now a woman, as one of the ones tied to a whole bunch of people on my street involved with all kinds of predicate acts from other areas. I don't know her. She's lying. She tried to make things. Once right before I was in a science class, like she knew how we were going to do dissecting. In other words, and increasingly, a Jody Pierce, I never saw her on a campus in my life. They made a fake exception of me knowing her with a DeMoro. That they have rules with fire departments and all sides of a Wethersfield community center. And the community center itself is increasingly involved with sexual and medical offenders of kids and police forms next to the and courts families next to the news locations and exceptions tied to it, like public television. It's also the roles of all these countries in the news at the same time. Russians, Ukraine, they run into Hartford Hospital, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, to hide life progressions, to be tortured, forced, extorted to. They even have prisons involved with crimes forcing them with collusions with the names next to body dumping spots. Uses of the serial killer, the reported serial killer, collusions with other natures of organized crime there, and with the prison, and to keep their mouth shut. In other words, get me off the fake conversations with WFSB, and let's get the World Trade Center predicate acts dealt with, and their sources. They have multiple police departments involved with the Wethersfield Police Department, switching in names, forging names, all kinds of falsified police reports, and multiple falsified police reports for the same arrests, and with confessions tied to that. These are also people making confessions to other nations this way, through time, many pray. I never had a class with Eric Mendez. Never saw him on campus in my life. But he had roles with making a fake exception with people with state judicial branch officers, making a real quick fake exception and confessing that he knows who I was before. I still don't know who he is. I only know he's also involved in the Britain Superior Court's hallway with some sexual and medical offenders of kids, also with judges, prosecutors, and their kids involved, victims advocates involved with overt criminal enterprises and private ones. So in other words, Dr. Drew is involved with private criminal enterprises too. I'm not even a lawyer. Get me off the fake conversations with FSB. And the policing of the internet and the readings of statutes and precedents. They're criminally incompetent, A through Z, the names of the people of the sciences. Judge Napolitano, get them on paper, please. Wethersfield Police and the New Britain Superior Court and the Harper Courts with this officer Hunter, too, as the ones involved also with the district court before the World Trade Center attack. They affected confessions to me. They were with co-defendants, the former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and all sides of criminal and civil cases in their depositions. And their family members and their neighbors have roles on off campuses by identity theft, fraud, slanders, predicate acts with fax methods, criminally foreign influence uses of databases, and of their own names and of other people's names, and of their motivations. No one cares about their motivations. In other words, I don't even know that girl's name, but we're gonna have to get them on paper because I don't know my other neighbor. He's reportedly dead, but they were involved with some untimely death at Trinity College. And with people with the name Lewis involved too, with child abusers, and child abuse is 3 years through the time connected. In other words, we have to get them on paper. Increasingly, people with the name O'Brien too, and Ray were brought up by I don't know if he said Ray O'Brien or Ray and O'Brien, because they also have roles at corners of streets, planting evidences, and with WTH sources putting identity theft, fraud, slanders with the WFSB itself that have attached me to fake conversations with themselves and fake conversations with me with others, including as doctors, fake ties to doctors that weren't at all as a kid and now as an adult too, like this Leahy family. They better get them off the fake conversations with me. They also forge names of doctors like a Dr. Shamsi Ali. Get them on paper, one name in sequence. Harvard Hospital won't communicate with me. They have criminal enterprises, private ones, involved with these same names with the houses and businesses next to them. Ones with the name Mayano, with a house near there, per Mayano, per John Mayano, that sought me out in 1994. First time I ever had coverage to make confessions to me, demonstrations to me. Had roles, all kinds of, a bunch of people in the Britain Superior Court involved with state police and writing forensics. Sometimes it's him and his family. And they do it as families because they are adults and kids involved with racketeering with doctors that are getting over on kids and getting over on adults, sickly, distinct, multi-front, the black people.